Story originally chronicled by Seer Alexandra Curien, collected by Daniel Curien, and expanded by Wheatzili Nakali. I wasn't born a Curien. I was once just an apprentice druid studying under my mother. When we removed the stillborn to Otherworld was the first time I met the Curiens. The next time I met them was when Nuala got old enough, and she tried to hire my mother for her services. But she was already on her journey to Otherworld herself. But I accepted the job myself. Nuala was convinced that me being a seer would mean that I could find things that she couldn't, that I could help unravel the family curse. That led me down a lot of old books and oral tales from other druids from Hibernia, Kimru, Caledonia, and even from Gaul, in hope for some answers about these ghosts. I heard a lot of ghost stories, but very few answers. I had spoken to great druids and seers. They would see very little of the Curien estate, and they all agreed there was a shade over the home and the family, something that affected all those who joined the family as well. Still, though, no firm answers. There was talk of changelings, but the stillborn didn't have a beard, and oaths don't like to hide themselves as dead things. There was talk of demons, but the huntsman and the weaver couldn't be repulsed with a prayer and a crucifix. There was even a half-sane half-wit who lived in a shitty gas station at the edge of a strange town, who spoke of dark gods and mutant raccoons. I have met both, neither of which were in the Curien estate. The closest thing to a firm answer was when I spoke to Ambrosius the Wild, a naked druid and prophet who lived in Caledonia Forest, isolated from society, but hardly the only naked man living in Caledonia who claimed to have all the answers. He offered me a book that he said would have the answers to the Curien's curse, a leather-bound tome written in Adamic and sealed with Ambrosius's power, a spell that made the words only readable to Ambrosius or those he allowed to see it. The price he wanted for the book was massive, far greater than what Nuala gave me to find the answers. 3 million punt for the book. I asked for time to speak with Nuala since she was the one who had the money to spend on this endeavor. So when I was at the inn, I called her to ask. Ambrosius the Wild said he could give us a book with all the information we need, but he's asking for 3 million punt. At first, Nuala was excited. A guaranteed answer for 3 million punt would cost most of the family's fortune, but they could afford it. But then the monster of billions of stories raised its ugly head. But do we have a guarantee that Ambrosius' book will have an answer? She asked me, and I could feel Dot gnawing and chewing on my thoughts as I answered her question, the doubt bleeding into my words as I answered. Everything I hear about Ambrosius says he is honest, and he always has the answer, I told her. And Nuala, first her attentive ear, asked, So you're not personally sure? Are you sure that he's Ambrosius, or are you unsure that he has the answer? Well, he doesn't exactly carry identification. He's a naked hermit who lives in a leper colony. So while I am fairly certain only Ambrosius the Wild would walk around naked in a leper colony, Caledonia Forest isn't exactly lacking in madmen, wild men, wolves, or scammers. I'm certain he isn't from a mound, but that doesn't remove all other possibilities. And if you were to ask me, I think he's who he says he is. I am more certain he is than he isn't. You didn't answer my second question. Are you sure he has the answer? That is harder to be certain of. I cannot read Ademic. Most everyone else I talk to has theories, thoughts, and stories to share. Most of what I know about the Curien curse comes from you or from my own first-hand observations. And Ambrosius is absolutely wise, and his sight goes much further than my own. But it is still like trusting someone who is telling you that they can see a mountain while all you can see is ocean. But I have seen enough to know that if someone sees a mountain where I can only see ocean, that it's better to listen than ignore it. 3 million punt is a lot of money, Nuala said as she fought the many-headed monster of doubt in her head. Doubt was like a hydra in that if you remove one head, two more takes its place. Doubt was like a fae. It took your words and it twisted them. And as much as you wanted to ignore it, you cannot completely ignore it either. See if you can ask him to reduce the price. If he isn't willing to reduce the price, call me back. I'll look over the family assets and see if there's anything we can move around to offset the cost a bit. She asked me, and that became the end of that conversation. So on the second night, I asked Ambrosius if he could reduce the price by a third. He said that he could, but if he reduced the price by a third, he would also reduce the information by a third. He asked if I wanted the beginning, the middle, or the ending removed. I thought about it and told him I could still understand it if the beginning and middle were still there. More specifically, he said, the map of destiny is drawn thrice, once for what was, once for what is, and once for what may yet be. Each thread is woven with consequences, and each omission, a tear in the fabric of your knowing. 3 cups rest upon your dinner table. One brims with the ashes of yesteryears. One swirls with the smoke of the present day. One flickers with the flames of tomorrow. What cup do you dare leave untouched tonight? Which cup do you dare risk its thirst on you? A third you will leave unpaid, so a third I will withhold. Which part of the crop do you sow but refuse to reap? Will it be the root? Will it be the stalk? Will it be the bloom? I thought about his question before I decided to answer his question. I will accept only the past and present. If I know where things began and where they are now, then I can figure out where they will end. Ah, the future, a path unlit and lined with wolves. Then walk forward with your eyes fixed behind you, and hope the stones beneath your steps remember kindness. But do you need to confer with your master, or do you have the ability to pay tonight? I will need to speak Nuala. Are you okay with meeting tomorrow night? Sure. We have cinema night at 8 and dinner at 5, so let's say around 6, and hopefully we can finish by 7. Sound good? Sounds great. See you then, Ambrosius. See you. So after meeting with Ambrosius, I told Nuala about what I learned, including that he'd be willing to accept less pay, but that would mean he would remove a third of the information in the book. Either the first third, the second third, or the final third. Well, if the final third is removed, that'll help, but I don't have as many assets as I thought I did. Is it possible for you to figure it out with just 1/3 of the book? I can definitely afford the million punt, but 2 million punt might leave us wiped out. Nuala said in a reductive way, meaning that 2 million punt would leave the family penniless. How did she lose so much money so quickly? The estate was valued at least 20 million punt the last time it was appraised. Can ask, but I want you to imagine this less as a puzzle or mystery and imagine it as a recipe. When you imagine a mystery, you know there's pieces and clues out there, even if you can't see them, but you believe that you can find them. But if you only have a third of a recipe, how do you find out what you are going to make? Eggs can be used in cakes, cookies, bread, souffle, or by itself. But if the only part you know of the recipe is it has eggs, then you may have no idea what your recipe is meant to be. For all you know, the recipe can be asking you for the eggs, for you to wait for the eggs to hatch before you cook them. If you ask me to only work with one part, I will work my hardest. It will not be my best. I will do as you ask, but I want you to do so fully knowing what you are asking and fully knowing that it will not be my fault. I warned her. I don't think she was listening. Get him to reduce it to 1 million punt. Make do with 1/3 or make do with nothing. I will transfer the money, Nuala said before she hung up the phone, leaving me alone in the inn. The next day I found Ambrosius sitting by the lake. I approached him, and after our pleasantries were exchanged, we went back to discussing his book. He agreed to the amount discussed, and I agreed to only have a third of the information accessible. More specifically, what he said was, "Have you decided the price you will pay? Have you decided the cost you'll bear?" I've decided to pay £1,000,000 for the book and to only access the first third of the book. What we seek is to understand the past. We live in the present, and the future is yet to be. Is that satisfactory to you, Ambrosius? Satisfactory? No. You are leaving more behind than you understand. You want to hold a match in your hand and understand why the forest around you is burnt? You want to hold a handful of grain in your hand and understand there is a city around you? This is the choice you are making, then I will accept it. But just know that if you only look behind you, you may not see what is ahead of you, he said, handing the book to me, and I gave him the check with Nuala's signature on it. Remember, no refunds, but if your master decides that she wants more of the book decoded, you are welcome to come back anytime, except Tuesdays, to pay for the rest. And as long as I live, this deal will stand. Ambrosius told me as I took the book back to the inn, and I tried to read it with Nuala over the phone. The first chapter that had the source of the curse. Your ancestor lost bog. Searched she find family. Never for she. Seeking kin. Death screaming. Which gave us almost no context nor real information. We thought when asked for the first third of the book, we would get the first third of the total book, not the first of every 3 words. Even when we checked the other chapters on the ghosts we knew about, they didn't offer any information we didn't already know, and it was incomplete. Nuala told me to head back to Ambrosius the next day to offer more money to get a more complete view of the book. But when I went back to where he was, I was met by very bad news by his staff. Ambrosius cashed the check the night before, and he went out for dinner. Turns out he was allergic to shellfish. No one at his home was able to unlock the rest of the book. He even had a tombstone made and presented at his home. Ambrosius. He's either resting, evolving, or proving a point. And beneath that, where the dates of birth and death were supposed to be, it said, "If I'm not back by Tuesday, start without me." Nuala was angry at the fact we couldn't unlock the rest of the book, and she was furious that she spent the £1,000,000 on a man who died that same night. So even with the book incomplete, we took it back home, where I tried to decode the chapters, had the missing words where I could. I tried spells, I tried seances, I tried spirit boards, I consulted the cards, I even asked others who claimed they could read all languages, but they couldn't decipher the symbols between the visible words. Then Nuala died, and soon after I married her brother. We became closer and closer as I got closer to Daniel. After I gave birth, I decided the way to understand the family curse was through the past. So I delved deeper and deeper into the archives of the Curien estate. My wife spent years reading through every old book in that musty old library. The farther back, the better. She translated old journals trying to figure out what ancestor was lost, paying special attention to anything she could about missing women or girls. She spent more time in her books than among the living. When she died, she was reading through a book on the prehistory of the bog while at the top of the stairs. It is said throughout the village that someone or something pushed her down the stairs, causing her head to completely turn around when she fell down, now facing towards her back. Her body splayed out and dead nearly instantly. I don't think she was pushed. I do think it was an honest mistake, but that doesn't change the fact that even after she was dead and buried, she didn't leave. She still wandered the estate, her head still on backwards, unable to see where she is walking, always looking behind herself while she wandered blindly forward, muttering to herself, but she wouldn't respond when I tried to speak to her. Even when I am right in front of her dead, unfocused eyes, she still cannot see nor hear me. When you can hear her speak, she will speak about events that have already passed. She mentions Dahlia's birthday. She mentions the burial of the stillborn. She mentions marrying me. She mentions finding Ambrosius's tombstone. She even mentions the first time she heard of the Curien estate. But no matter what I try to do to tell her, she is not aware of the present, nor does she seem to have a concept of the future. I don't know if she knew that she was dead. I am not my sister, nor am I my wife. I don't know where I can go to find out more about the curse, nor do I know how to study the ghosts. Everything Alexandra talks about either happened in her life or happened before she was born. Dahlia was only 6 years old when her mother died, and I don't want her to lose her father as well. I am already raising Dahlia, my daughter, by myself, and I am raising Wolfgang, my sister's son, also by myself. Even with nannies, even with staff, it's difficult, and with the specter of death hovering over my head like the sword of Damocles, I am officially closing the book on investigating any more of these ghosts or curse. Maybe if we leave it alone, it will leave us alone.